All right, I'm back and had to cover the Lil Durk bail. He didn't get granted the bail, which I knew. The judge denied him, and you can see right here it says because of using phone accounts of 13 other inmates. And we're going to get into that. That's just, I think, in addition. My thing, and I'd always said he was not going to be given bail because the man was trying to run back in October 2024 when the feds were first after him. He used the OTF, only the family, that's the record label, their business credit card to book multiple flights. And one of them was to a country that had no extradition to the United States, meaning once he got over there, he can just wait this whole case out. They couldn't send him back to the United States where he would sit either in jail or at home on house arrest, one or the other. So they called him before he could get out of the country. And when I saw that, I said, this man is not going to get bail at all. He has a net worth of $60 million, I believe. So now they're looking at him as a flight risk already with that type of money. But the fact that you try and run when they already after you, they can come arrest you. I guess they had the warrant already. They had enough evidence at that point back in October last year. But now they see him booking flights. You trying to run before we even get you into custody. So you definitely is there's not going to be any bail. We see you trying to be a flight risk at the beginning of this. Now, Puff Daddy Diddy, he tried twice to get bail. They denied him. He tried a third time, and then he ended up just taking that off the table. I think they would have denied him the third time too. But he's worth a lot more than Lil Durk, and they still denied him bail. So you worth 60 million, which is more than enough to be considered a flight risk. But if Puff Daddy is being denied bail, you probably are too. And that's, maybe they would have changed their mind, but when you're running before they even arrest you, you're not getting any type of bond. And I knew that. When they arrested Puff Daddy, and I got that video on my channel, he was in the lobby of the hotel. TMZ caught the footage. It's no sound to it. They arrested him, took him into custody, and that was it. He tried to get bail, but they didn't, the judge said no. Now with Lil Durk, I heard they was offering a package. They was offering 900,000, saying he would be at home with an ankle monitor on and strict security watching him. And something else, you have to put together a nice insurance package if you're trying to get out on bond so the courts don't believe you'll try and run. But they denied him just like I thought. I knew this man was going to get denied. You're running before the fact, and what he's accused of in this whole murder for hire with Quando Rondo, and it ended up being Quando's cousin that was the one they ended up taking out, and so now he's lost his life over all of this mess. Not Quando Rondo. Quando Rondo is the target. But I'm not surprised at this ruling. They kept saying May 8th, that's today. We're going before the judge, trying to get Lil Durk out before Mother's Day. Nope. Still has to sit in there. They may try it again, but I knew this first attempt they were going to say no. Just off of him trying to run back in October 2024 initially. I knew it. So I'm not surprised at the judge denying bail. But now we're about to get into the other reasons that the judge is saying that the bail was denied. So I'm on rollingstone.com. So let's get into this. Accused of using phone accounts of 13 other inmates. And I'm going off of CNN over here. I'll get to that tab. That's it right here. And Rolling Stone. So let's get into Rolling Stone. Let's scroll down. And here we go. Grammy-winning rapper is fighting charges. He orchestrated a murder for hire plot that resulted in a man's death. Like I said, that man was supposed to be Quando Rondo, who's also a rapper, music artist, but it ended up being Quando's cousin. So here we go. Durk appeared in a courtroom downtown LA on May 8th, Thursday, Judge denied his souped up bid. That's what I was telling you, the package they was putting together to be released on bond pending the trial. Okay, trial is scheduled to start on October 14th. All right. On charges, he orchestrated a murder for hire plot that led to a man's death. So, moments after the All My Life rapper heard the ruling, he was asked to enter a plea to the second superseding indictment filed in the case last week. He put in not guilty, just like Diddy did. He said while seated at a defense table wearing a beige jail uniform and knit kufi cap in keeping with his, that's the type on their part, Muslim faith. I had no idea Lil Durk was a Muslim. I guess I don't follow him enough. I hear about guys going into jail and then converting to Islam or whatever. So I don't, his music didn't seem like he was Islam to me when he, not, I don't know. Sometimes people play around with religion. Hopefully he's serious with it. You all see Brittany Renner running around with Kevin Gates. She's Muslim now, so I don't know. Anyway, let's continue. The hearing was an hour long. Durk, he's 32. He's turning 33 this year. Stood up, smiled at the group of nearly 2 dozen supporters seated in the gallery. He raised his right hand, okay, to his heart and nodded at his family and friends before the U.S. Marshals took him back to his jail cell. So his dad was at the trial, Big Durk Devontay Banks. You saw the smile that was on his face both during the time and afterwards. After the ruling, he's still smiling. He's still strong. He's standing on his faith, and believing that God will make a way for him. Okay. Supportive dad. Lil Durk, born Durk Banks, had proposed paying Beverly Hills. Let's get into the whole case. Beverly Hills-based RSEC security to enforce a strict home detention program. This is what he was trying to offer the courts so they'll let him out and just be at home till October 14th, and then he can go to trial, come home, go to trial, come home, instead of trial then jail cell, trial then jail cell. And so he was going to have a security team making sure that they monitored him around the clock, armed guards, while he prepares for his upcoming trial. So they supposed to be in place to make sure he doesn't try and fly out of here. He also increased cash portion of his proposed bail package, adding another $150,000 to the $1 million previously offered by Alamo Records. I thought it was $900,000, so it was $1 million. And see, Puff Daddy offered more than that, and they still told him no. So, and he didn't even try and run. So, like I said, I'm not surprised that the judge saying no to the bail. Let's see here. In oral arguments, Durk's lawyer, Drew Feinling, said the robust proposal was more than enough, considering Lil Durk has no priors. But depending on what you're accused of, even if you don't have a record, certain things are just so out there that, no priors doesn't mean anything. This is not somebody lost their life, so it doesn't matter in this case. Rules change. Finally said the circumstances of the case also changed when prosecutors filed their updated indictment last week. He said they removed two of the three specific facts in the prior indictment that connected Lil Durk to the August 2022 shooting death of Savia Robinson at a gas station near the Beverly Center Mall in LA. So let's see, let's continue. Speaking to the judge, Feinling said prosecutors not only eliminated the allegation that Banks monetized and celebrated the death with the song lyrics, they also removed the allegation that Banks directed a co-defendant to pay the bounty for Robinson's death. Feinling argued the new indictment now hinges on only sweeping generalizations that Banks offered a bounty for the death of Robinson's cousin. I guess that's Tyquan Terrell Bowman. Also, okay, that's Quando Rondo's government name. Prosecutors allege Banks wanted Bowman dead because he blamed him for the death of a childhood friend. Robinson was traveling with Bowman the day a group of alleged hitmen opened fire on Bowman's car, killing Robinson. Now, Robinson is Quando Rondo's cousin. That's the man who passed away in all of this. Target was Quando Rondo, but Robinson is the cousin that ended up being unalived uh, as a result of all of this. So, rest in peace to Quando Rondo's cousin. And so, like him not having any priors, the fact that a life was lost, that don't necessarily hold up in the court of law, even though he doesn't have a record. So when it was his turn to speak, Assistant U.S. Attorney Ian Yanello disputed the claim that the murder for hire indictment rises or falls on the lyrics no longer specifically cited. And that's the thing about some of these song lyrics. These music artists end up telling on themselves, and I guess they feeling themselves like they got away with it, allegedly, and then they make songs about it. And then the law enforcement uses that to convict, arrest, things like that, getting a warrant issued. And I think that wraps back around to attention in whichever shape or form people can get it, to the fact that you even tell on yourself when you do something wrong. So this is how attention can get us in so much trouble. So let's continue. The murder case is not about Banks' lyrics. It's not about his music. It's about his conduct, how he acts, and the steps he allegedly took when he allegedly dispatched hitmen to hunt, stalk, and take out a rival. He also claimed the government hadn't conceded anything. That's the Assistant United States Attorney Ian Yanello's words. The government stands by the allegation that Lil Durk did in fact commercialize his violence, but that's a question for another day. He said the matter will be decided when the court takes up motions on the evidence to be allowed at trial. That's October 14th. The trial starts. Before she issued her ruling denying Banks' bond, the judge, Patricia Donahue, said she had received a report claiming Lil Durk repeatedly used at least 13 other inmate phone accounts to make phone calls from his detention center. She said it was a violation of the facility's rules. She also said Banks appeared to be engaging in three-way calls. So, okay, he's in there breaking detention rules and stuff. There's a certain way that I guess phone usage goes, and Lil Durk is, out of order. Finally argued that inmates using other inmates' phone accounts is a common practice, though, okay, inside federal detention centers. He said there was no evidence Banks was doing anything other than connecting with his family. The lawyer said he's in regular contact with officials at Banks' detention facility and that he's heard nothing but praise for Lil Durk's conduct and his commitment to his Muslim faith. So I guess the judge is thinking he's using all of these inmates' phone time. I'm guessing he's probably paying the inmates for the phone time to, I guess, do things to manipulate the case, manipulate evidence, all of that. They figure if you're trying to threaten, they don't know what these calls are about, and so it just looks suspicious. And so that added to him being denied bond, and so he has to sit in there. And the judge still said the phone issue when she issued her ruling. She said while the practice of using might not be uncommon, it showed a disrespect for the rules, and that's precisely the court's concerns with regard to risk of flight. See, I knew it was going to come back to that. This phone usage is in addition to him trying to run. I mean, they look at everybody with a lot of money as a flight risk. You look at Russell Simmons, things like that. But when they arrested Lil Durk, he had booked multiple flights. And like I said, one of the countries had no extradition treaty with the United States. So had he got over there, he could sit over there and wait this thing out and not have to sit in jail, not have to go to court, anything. He was preparing to run. So you look at that in addition to this phone thing, and that's what got the bond denied. I'm not surprised. Let's continue. In denying Lil Durk's release, the judge said the charges against the rapper remain the most serious, as reflected in the potential punishment. The indictment's charge of murder for hire resulting in death carries a mandatory minimum penalty of life in prison if convicted. Wow. That's the minimum penalty of life in prison. I wonder what's the maximum. Speaking after the hearing, Feinling tells Rolling Stone he plans to appeal. Of course, they're going to appeal. Puff Daddy appealed his too. He says the only remaining fact-based allegation left in the indictment is an August 18, 2022 text in which Banks told a co-conspirator, "Don't book no flights under no names involved with me." Prosecutors claim the text shows that Banks was trying to conceal his involvement in the movement of the alleged hitmen. You gotta watch these text messages that we sending out here, people. Watch what you sending to anybody. The superseding indictment is really only down to one specific fact, and it's an out-of-context text message. Filing, a prominent lawyer known for representing NBA YoungBoy, Cardi B, and Donald Trump, okay, it's just completely out of context. So he's saying they just misunderstood what Durk meant in the text. They don't know what the meaning of it was, and other than that, there's nothing that sets forth any direct evidence tying him to anything that's alleged in the indictment. So let's go back here. As Rolling Stone first was reported back in December 2024, Lil Durk denied since last year that he sought to commercialize the shooting at the center of the case. In the prior indictment, prosecutors say Lil Durk's song Wonderful Wayne and Jackie Boy that came out December 2022. I don't know if you guys have heard that. With Babyface Ray, that's another rapper. Says Banks alleged revenge on Bowman. Bowman is Quando Rondo. In the song, Banks raps, "Look on the news and see your son, you screaming no no." Prosecutors claimed it was a reference to Bowman seeing Robinson's dead body. Robinson is Bowman's cousin again. Bowman is Quando Rondo, and Robinson is Quando's cousin, and that's the one who lost his life in all of this. At the prior bond hearing on December 12th last year, Feinling argued that the song was recorded months before the shooting. He offered a sworn declaration from the song's producer, Justin Gibson, supporting the point. So, yeah, this whole murder for hire thing and, him not having any priors, that doesn't really hold up in court based on what you've done for the first time. You having a clean record doesn't help you get some type of leeway, especially when it involves murder and somebody losing their life. So, it's crazy. I'm not surprised of him being denied bail at all. The target was Quando Rondo, as we all know, and that's his last name, Bowman. But what ended up happening was Robinson ended up losing his life in all of this. Again, that's Savaya. How do you say his name? Saviaya, Savaya Robinson. But the target was Quando Rondo, Tyquan Terrell Bowman. So obviously Quando didn't get unalived at that time. Quando Rondo was still here, and this whole thing is because Robinson is now unalived at this point based on the hitmen that were sent that way. Now, had Robinson lived, there might have still been a court case. I don't know how that would have, an alleged murder for hire, so attempted murder for hire at this point because no one lost their life. So maybe the consequences of that wouldn't be mandatory life in prison. They say that's the mandatory minimum for murder for hire, but unfortunately Robinson is gone, and so now Lil Durk is facing that minimum, like they said, uh, life in prison. That's the mandatory minimum, as it says right here. That's the penalty if you get found guilty on this charge, and he's pleaded not guilty. So, it's crazy. That whole inmates using their phones and all of that, that's just in addition to him being a flight risk and then him trying to book flights when the feds were on their way to arrest him. So I think all of that snowballs into this more so than even him using phone accounts from 13 other inmates, whether that's against the rules or not common. They say it isn't uncommon, his lawyer is arguing, but I think the main thing is the flight risk and then him trying to run when they were about to arrest him October last year. He had already booked flights, so definitely not surprised by the bail being denied. And I didn't know it carried a mandatory minimum of life in prison. That's the mandatory minimum punishment for a murder for hire case if you're indicted on that and you get found guilty. So like I said, I wonder what's the maximum. If the minimum is life in prison, I wonder what's the maximum. I mean, unless that could end up you getting the death penalty, I just don't see if your minimum is life in prison, then I wonder what the max is for this type of charge. Carries a mandatory minimum penalty of life in prison if convicted, found guilty. So, this is crazy. I've heard people in the barbershop talk about they think Lil Durk is gone. He won't beat this. A lot of opinions on it. I don't know. I knew he wasn't going to be allowed bail. As soon as I heard that May 8th, hey, Lil Durk, they putting together a package for him to get bail, putting this money up and everything else. They trying to convince the courts that he won't be able to run, things like that. And I just told you the security company in the video that in this video that he was hiring to make sure they guard him, basically protect him from himself, making sure he doesn't go anywhere to make the courts feel comfortable so they don't lose out on bringing him to trial, but they still said no. I'm not surprised at all. So this is from rollingstone.com if you guys want to check it out. LA Times, which is where the trial was at, the bond hearing. He's being held in the LA Detention Center over there in LA, California. And so they both reporting the same thing, calls from jail. You all want to check it out, whichever one, LA Times. And, what do you guys think? I had no idea he was a Muslim. Maybe he was before he went in, and I just wasn't following him enough like that. A lot of people get in jail and convert to religion. Islam probably being the biggest one. I don't know how many convert to Christianity, but I don't know if he Muslim all of a sudden to help with this case and how he looks from people on the outside looking in, how he'll look to the jurors, if that'll help. I don't know. Since he's Muslim now, whatever. And I don't know. But what do you guys think? Are you surprised by this hearing that he had? Not the hearing, but just the results of it, the outcome that the judge is denying him bail, no bond, so he has to sit in there. Trial starts October 14th. Are you guys surprised that you think they were going to let him come home and just wait until the trial starts on October 14th? Or did you all feel like I felt and that this was going to be the result? I had no other way of thinking that Lil Durk would be allowed bond on May 8th. I knew it when I looked up some information about him to see about his next court date, and then this was going to be the bond hearing. I already said in the back of my head they're going to say no. And so now the trial, I just found out in this article, starts October 14th, and he's going to sit in there through October 14th, and so that's the next time he'll get to come out, go to court, then go back to his jail cell. There will be no at home, go to the court building and come back home. That's ideal. That's what Carmelo Anthony got, the 17-year-old down there in Texas. He's out on bond, so he gets to go to whenever his trial starts, he gets to go to the courthouse and come back home. But yeah, I knew Lil Durk was it was going to be a no. Just the fact that he was trying to run. So, what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments. Do you think the judge is being unfair in this case and that Durk should be able to be at home out on bond while he waits for the trial date on October 14th? Or do you think he should be sitting in the LA jail where he is now with no bond? Do you think he deserves bond? Yes or no? So many cases, so much stuff going on with him, Puff Daddy, Shannon Sharp, the 17-year-old Carmelo Anthony. He's not in the industry like the others. And now you add Smokey Robinson to the list. He's not in the industry, but they've highlighted his case and pushed that to the forefront since his race involved, I guess. Yeah, but it's a lot. One court case after another. People accused of different things, murders, sexual assault, all of that stuff. And we just gotta think, really just think, so we keep ourselves out of these situations, so we can stay out of these courtrooms. Watch what you're texting. They taking Lil Durk's text and saying, oh, and this was his intent. His lawyers arguing that they took it out of context. But when you got words on the screen, it's hard to get the feeling behind what was meant when that was sent. That's why you have people put LOL or some type of emoji. Some people will respond back to you, thank you, and that's it. And then I done heard people complain saying, that's a dry response. You just said thank you, that's it. There's no exclamation mark, nothing. It just seems like you don't care. When that's not even the case, but that's how people look at certain words on the screen. And so they looking at his text one way, the prosecutor's looking at it another way, saying, hey, this is what he meant to do. Durk's lawyers are saying, are you taking it out of context? That's not what was meant by that text that he sent. So only Lil Durk, only the person, only you know what your intent is when you text anything or you post anything, or you typing it and then hitting that send button in an email or on your Instagram, on your X, formerly Twitter, whatever you post on. Only you know your intent. But when it comes to court, other people look at your intent different from how you look at it, and that can result in you getting denied bail or you being found guilty. It just depends. So we got to be careful what we even posting or texting or sending an email with. That stuff come back to bite you in the end. So not necessarily meaning that you can't get found not guilty, but the way people look at words on the screen and how they interpret it, and it could be a misinterpretation based on why you sent it, the reason you sent it, just makes your case that harder to win. But we got to stay out of these situations, period. For people in the future who hear this, and if you end up in the industry and, don't do any type of murder for hires, if you in an entanglement with somebody physically, try and fight them off before, trying to use self-defense and then say that's why you took the person's life. And when it comes to the sexual stuff, be careful what you texting the person on the phone when it comes to, how kinky you are and, your sexual desires. People, if they are lying and trying to get some money out of you and start saying that you took advantage of them in the bedroom, they'll use the text messages and the times that you all have been together under the same roof to try and create, a case for themselves. And now you hoping you get the benefit of the doubt, denying the accusations. But it's just, a lesson. And these aren't the first people to be accused of any of this. You know, from Puff Daddy to Smokey Robinson to Shannon Sharp to Lil Durk to Carmelo Anthony. They're the latest in, U.S. court cases, whether it be a criminal case or a civil case, where they just want the money paid out. But there's ways to avoid all of this, and I think people just need to be more patient, stop being desperate, and think a little bit so we don't get caught up in things like this, especially when you got stuff to lose. And some got more to lose than others in the case of Smokey Robinson and Lil Durk, Shannon Sharp, and Diddy. But yeah, it's no surprise here that he got denied bail. They're going to try and appeal before October 14th, I'm sure, and try and get him out during the summer or springtime now, because it'll be fall when the trial actually starts, and they probably don't want him sitting in there over the summer. But I think that'll still get denied too. And, you know, it's a lesson learned. Again, let me know what you guys think down in the comments about the judge's decision to deny Lil Durk bail. Are you on Durk's side? Are you against him? Or do you think he deserves to still be sitting in there, or should he be at home right now? Let me know. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel. As always, facts or feelings, all one word, no spaces. Put that in the YouTube search, facts or feelings, no spaces, and my channel comes right up. Again, my YouTube email is cregier.mj@gmail.com. That's CREGIER period MJ@gmail.com. You can send any topics you want me to review, discuss, and any videos you want me to review to that email address, and I'll check them out and put those on the channel. And I guess my only advice after this, stay out of jail, stay out of court as best you can. That's for everybody. I'll be back with another video soon. Definitely going to be covering Diddy's trial and that juror selection. That's still ongoing, and I say the trial officially starts May 12th. I'll let you guys know why when I get that video uploaded on May 12th. Even though they started the juror selection as of May 5th, there's been no opening statements, arguments. So, I know that's the date they gave us initially before May, that the trial starts May 5th. This was the earliest date they could get a trial, but I watched other legal experts say juror selection starts May 5th, trial starts May 12th. That's because that's when opening statements begin from the defense and the prosecution, so that makes more sense. But anyway, I will be covering Diddy's trial and doing a video about, the official trial start date and what people think about that, who will be called, to the witness stand, what other secrets will come out. That's a lot of eyes will be on that just because of who could be taken down. But anyway, yeah, we seeing a lot, and it goes back to Shannon Sharp Club Shay Shay 2024 January 3rd. Cat Williams is on there. A lot of people say that kicked off a lot of this. They call year 2024 the year reveal, where we're going to see so much be opened up, and we're seeing it continue into 2025. Smokey Robinson being the latest accused of sexual misconduct, and so we'll go from there. Anyway, I'm out.